This is the Niger River, Africa's third longest waterways, nearly 3,000 miles of it, cutting from Guinea, through Mali, through the Republic of Niger, before it bends south into Nigeria and meets the Benue River, right here at a town called Lokoja. 38 kilometers downriver from that confluence, on the left bank is a place most Nigerians have heard of, but almost none have seen. It is called Ajaokuta. And what you are looking at, 43 plants spread across 23,000 hectares, is the largest industrial complex ever built on the African continent. It is bigger than the island of Manhattan in the United States. It has its own town. It has its own railway that runs south to the iron mills at Itakpe and continues to the Atlantic port of Warri. It also has coke ovens that are larger than all of Nigeria's oil refineries combined. It was designed to produce 1.3 million tons of steel a year to anchor Nigeria's railway, automobiles, shipbuilding, and defense, to turn Africa's largest economy into a true industrial power. It is 98% complete. It has been 98% complete since 1994. In 32 years of being almost finished, the Ajaokuta Steel Company has never produced a single sheet of premise steel. Nigeria has spent over $10 billion on it. The Soviets started it, the Japanese tried to revive it, the Indians took it over and were accused of stripping it for parts. Every single one of them walked away. Now in 2026, the Chinese are at the door. This is the story of how a country with the largest economy in Africa, sitting on iron, on oil, with more than 200 million people, built the bone of an industrial superpower and then chose decades after decades to let it rot. It is the story of 3 foreign powers, 4 military regimes, and 1 Indian billionaire who walked in, signed his name, and walked out with the keys. And the question we are about to spend the next few minutes answering is this: was Ajaokuta ever supposed to work, or was it always supposed to fail? To understand why Ajaokuta matters, you have to understand what Nigeria was in the 1970s. The country was less than a decade out of brutal civil war, a country sitting on the world's 7th largest oil reserve, a country with a generation of leaders who looked at South Korea, at Brazil, at China, and asked a simple question: if they can do it, why can't we? In 1973, a Nigerian Soviet team flying aeromagnetic patterns over the Central Plateau confirmed what geologists have suspected for years. Beneath the soil of what is now Kogi State sat roughly 3 billion tons of iron ore. Not the highest grade, under 40% iron content. But Nigeria also had something else: cheap natural gas from the Niger Delta and a domestic market that was about to explode. The plan was straightforward: mine the ore at Itape, ship it 40 kilometers by rail to a brand new integrated steel plant at Ajaokuta. From there, produce billets, wire rods, iron sections, the structural backbone of every modern economy. In June 1976, Nigeria signed the founding contract with a Soviet state firm called Gazprom Exports. The price tag $1 billion. Commercial production was scheduled for 1980. 3 years later, in 1979, the newly elected civilian president Shehu Shagari incorporated Ajaokuta Steel Company Limited and broke ground. This was not a vanity project. This was a sovereignty project. Steel was the backbone of every industrial power on earth, and Nigeria was about to build its own. That was the plan. Gazprom Export was not a random pick. By 1976, the same Soviet firm had delivered steel projects in Brazil, in South Korea, in China. It had a track record. What followed at Ajaokuta was, by any measure, one of the most ambitious construction efforts in African history. In 1981, President Shagari was laying the foundation stone himself. By 1982, EOT cranes in the light section mill were operational. By 1983, the project was 80% complete. 40 out of 43 plants were physically built, but the cost, that was a different story. The original 1976 contract, $1 billion. By February 1980, $12.7 billion. Then renegotiated again and again. 3 things were happening at once: Nigeria inflation, currency devaluation, according to a leaked 2003 US Embassy cable later published. The cable described Ajaokuta as a mechanism to grant contract to contractors performing substandard work at overinflated prices, while providing senior government of Nigeria officials with large kickbacks. The plant was being built and the plant was being looted at the same time. By the end of 1983, Nigeria was in recession. Oil prices had collapsed, the government ran out of money and stopped paying contractors. And then on December 31st, the army stepped in. On New Year Eve 1983, General Muhammadu Buhari overthrew the Shagari government. One of his first acts was an audit of every major federal project. Buhari did not stop Ajaokuta. He could not. The plant employed 5,000 people directly and stood as the symbol of Nigeria's industrial ambition. To kill it would have been politically impossible. But he did not finish it either. In August 1985, just days after Buhari signed a new completion agreement with the Soviets, Buhari himself was overthrown, this time by General Ibrahim Babangida. Babangida pushed the schedule 1988, 1989, 1990. Each year, completion slipped. Each year, more Soviet engineers were withdrawn from the site. Salary disputes, housing disputes, political disputes, and then in December 1991, the Soviet Union ceased to exist. In 1994, Ajaokuta reached 98% completion. 40 out of 43 plants were built, 3 plants and the integration work to make all 43 operate as a single machine were all that stood between Ajaokuta and the steel. The plant has remained at 98% ever since. By 2002, civilian rule had returned to Nigeria. President Olusegun Obasanjo, who in his earlier life as military head of state had been one of the original architects of Ajaokuta, decided to finish what he had started 30 years earlier. He went to Moscow first, the Russian declined. He flew to Kyiv, the Ukrainian declined. So Obasanjo did what neither of his predecessors had been willing to do. He privatized it. In 2004, after a brief and unsuccessful concession to Japan's Scope Steel, Ajaokuta was handed to Ispat Industry, backed by Global Infrastructure Holding Limited. The deal was 10 years concession. India's largest steel family was going to do what the Soviets could not. 4 years later, in 2008, the Yar'Adua administration cancelled the concession. The accusation was direct. Global Steel Holdings had not been completing the plant. They had been stripping it, inventorying assets, removing equipment. What followed was one of the longest and the most expensive arbitration cases in African history. Global Infrastructure Holding Limited sued Nigeria at the International Chambers of Commerce. The claim for damages was estimated to be between $5.3 billion and $14 billion. The Nigerian government accused the company managing the plant of removing or selling off its assets. The company in turn countersued for more than what the entire plant originally cost to build. The first settlement was reached in 2016. Nigeria regained control of the steel mill. However, Global Steel Holding kept the iron ore mine at Itape. This meant the steel plant and the iron ore mine, which were meant to work together as one system, ended up under different owners. As a result, the original integrated plan for the project was broken. In 2022, Nigeria paid Global Steel Holding $496 million to settle all remaining claims, $500 million to regain full ownership of a plant that had still produced nothing. At the inaugural Russia and Africa Summit in Sochi, President Buhari and President Putin agreed to bring the original builders back. Gazprom Exports, now operating under Russia's state-owned defense conglomerate Rostec, would conduct a technical audit of the plant they had abandoned 28 years earlier. Then COVID-19 hit, then the invasion of Ukraine, and the agreement quietly fell apart. In 2023, the new Tinubu administration created Nigeria's first dedicated Federal Ministry of Steel Development. Its goal was simple: revive Ajaokuta. Tazprom Exports, Rostec, Novostar, and the Nigerian defense manufacturer Profos. The estimated investment was $2 billion. Russian engineers returned to Ajaokuta for the first time since 1991, but Russia was no longer the only option. In June 2025, Nigeria was simultaneously in talk with 3 of China's largest steel producers: Fangda Steel, Jianye Group, and Sino Steel. By early 2026, the government had selected a preferred Chinese partner. 10 companies had been screened. 20 Chinese engineers had spent 2 weeks on site at their own expense. The structure being negotiated was different from anything that had been tried before. It was not a sale or a concession, it was a production sharing model. The Chinese investor would receive 60 to 70% of the output at first as repayment for the money invested. Over 5 to 10 years, that share would gradually reduce to zero. Throughout the process, Nigeria will keep ownership of the assets. The economic logic was finally on Nigeria's side. The country imports roughly $4 billion of steel every year. A functioning Ajaokuta could supply a quarter of national demand on day one. But not everyone was convinced. In September 2025, Africa's richest man, the industrialist who had just commissioned the largest single-train oil refinery on earth, said something that landed like a hammer blow. Aliko Dangote told reporters Ajaokuta would never work. His argument was technical, not political. The plant was designed in 1970s on Soviet engineering principles. The blast furnace process required cooking coal Nigeria does not have in commercial quantity. The control systems were 40 years out of date. The global steel industry had moved decisively towards modular electric arc furnace. Over 70% of US steel now comes from this newer model. In Dangote's view, Ajaokuta was not an unfinished plant, it was a finished plant from a previous century. The Nigerian engineering community pushed back hard. Otis, former president of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, argued that Ajaokuta's core technologies remain relevant, that the failure had been institutional, not technical, that every steel plant ever built required commissioning, training, and integration, none of which Ajaokuta has ever received. Both arguments are now running into third reality. In 2026, the Nigeria federal budget allocated over 6 billion naira to Ajaokuta Steel Company. Of that 6 billion, 90% will go to salaries. 3,000 workers, 43 plants, 1 light mill section producing iron rods at small scale, 0 commercial output, 42 years and counting. In April 2026, an economics professor named Banji Oyelaran Oyeyinka calculated that Ajaokuta idleness has cost Nigeria over $36 billion in lost economic output across 4 decades, far more than the original investment, far more than the cost of any revival plan. 3 superpowers tried to build the African biggest steel plant. None of them finished. The last one standing, the country whose engineer has worked these mills for 40 years, whose budget kept the lights on, whose workers still arrive every morning, is Nigeria itself. If you like content like this, please like and subscribe. Do you think Nigeria government should still invest in Ajaokuta steel plant? Let me know in the comment section. See you on my next video.